cool platform that I use. Like it goes live directly to Facebook and YouTube and other sources all at the same time. That light is really bright tonight. Okay, cool. So we are now live. And how do I say your last name, Marv?
It's Degon.
Degon.
Yeah.
So this is basically what this is. This is two worlds that just happen to collide on social media, and I got to know you a little bit and heard a little bit about your backstory, and thought it'd be a good idea for you and I just to have a conversation about regenerative medicine and why you are. I want to hear your story about it, coming from professional sports to regenerative medicine. I want to hear your story.
So I came to a lot of the things that I'm involved in now out of necessity, right? Sports brought me. Hockey is an interesting sport because there's professional leagues all over the world. So I ended up playing in Canada, then I ended up playing in Germany and Slovenia and Italy, throughout a lot of Europe. And throughout all of those experiences, I saw the healthcare dynamic and kind of the ins and outs of it, and understanding, a lot of the fail points for an athlete. And
Right.
And then once you're done playing, without the support systems that you have at your reach, you tend to fall off a little bit, right? So without the access to the doctors and to the chiros and to the massage therapists and all of these pieces, I needed to find something that was more sustainable, and it wasn't going to be, surgeries or opiates and painkillers or sleeping pills or muscle relaxers. Those aren't things that I really believe in. But of course, you use them as you do in athletics, just because sometimes your body says no, but you just got to get there, right? So you don't have a choice, right? There's somebody else that's going to step up if you don't. But at the same time, you even more than that, you want to contribute to the team. You want to contribute to the end goal, and if you're not able to do that, it breaks your heart. So when you're done playing now, what are you going to do? I found cannabis first. I reached out and through my career, I was a no alcohol, no smoking kind of guy. But towards the end, I found cannabis not as a recreational thing, but as a tool for health. An activated endocannabinoid system, all of these pieces. But at the same time, it was a bit of a band-aid. It wasn't the end-all piece. There was still more. I still needed more relief, I guess, and that's when the regenerative space kind of came into my view. To be through so many, I wasn't lucky enough to have surgeries like a lot of my colleagues, a lot of, NFL guys, NBA guys that go through the ultimate kind of treatment protocol, I guess you'd call it. But, I've gone through just about everything up until that. And now to finally have found something that, I don't know, it's the relief factor, people who deal with pain understand where people who deal with pain come from.
Right.
And it dulls your senses. It affects your family life. It affects everybody around you in this kind of, rock in a pond kind of scenario, right? So for me, this has been a revelation, and I'm just excited to be deeper and deeper into it.
Right. I don't know if I talked to you about this or not, but it's interesting to Google professional athletes that have had, and I'm just going to say stem cell therapy, even though we're way beyond stem cell therapy now. But how many athletes have had stem cell therapy done? And there are some big household names on that list. And I remember Kobe Bryant disappearing and going to Germany for treatment mid-season back in the day. And there's a lot, it seems to me that professional sports kind of bring a lot of this stuff to the mainstream. And it's hard. This is a hard space to get into just because of what we are up against. And I tell people all the time, if people would listen to what we're telling them, we could save a vast majority of people from having to have joint replacement surgery. So you start talking about that, then you're going to start talking about politics and the financial part of it that goes into that. So it is a tough nut to crack. But do that. Google that. Google who's had stem cell therapy. It's pretty fascinating. Steph Curry was on the list. I'm trying to think
It's,
of.
it's interesting. I think, I go back and forth on what is going to be the deciding factor. Like, what is going to make it so that this is available to an athlete? Because it's just what should be available to an athlete, right? I don't understand why these aren't greater accessibility. You know what I mean? But when you consider what these athletes are using it for, they're using it to get back into play. They're using it to get back to the game, to stay in practice, to stay competitive. So if the owners were able to conceptualize dollars lost to players out of the game and injuries, right? That would be, if that was in the conversation, if they could do some case studies and really understand what that looked like, and recovery times, and that would be a number that they would be very interested in. Jersey sales. Think about this. I mean, for me, hockey is very relevant, right? Everybody was up in arms when the NHL left the Olympics. Well, I know why the NHL left the Olympics, and I'm not sure why not many people talk about it, but it's insurance. Right, you have these players on contracts, and they're going to go play for their country. They're not going to go over there and be wallflowers. They're going to play for the country.
Right, and they're going to lay it all out for their country.
Right, and who's on the hook, right? So what's on the line? So that player's contract's on the line, right? Not just that player's contract, but that player's next 40 games in that season. What's that team going to do? How many tickets are they going to sell? Are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to have TV contracts? They're going to do. They're going to win the Stanley Cup that year, right? So when you do, arbitrations, you do worst case scenario, right? That's what you get paid on, or you try to get paid on. So, there's this massive dollar conversation that can go into this when you talk about an athlete's recovery, especially the elite athletes of the world.
Yeah, sure. And it was worth sending your athlete on the other side of the planet to get some of these procedures done.
Right. Being there and understanding, you do what you have to do, right? Because it's next up,
Right. So for you, though, it was more of now my career is winding down and I want to be human. That's the way I understand it.
What's that? Say that again? Sorry.
That you want to be human. Your career's over and you want to be the family guy. And
yeah, you find these athletes who have been kind of chewed up and spit out in this machine. And the common thing that a lot of people say is, well, they waste their money and they're all broke when they're done. And that is a common thing. That does happen, of course. But the reality of it is you have these athletes that are now thrust out into the world without the support system that they've relied on for, they're on the bus with 20 other guys. If they have an issue, they could talk to one of them typically, or they have therapists with the teams now, and psychologists and chiropractors, and they have all these people, but they're not just people that provide treatments. They're people to talk to as well. So these players have these support systems, and I think that it's obviously terrible that a lot of them don't access them, but they're typically there. And now they're out in the real world. So what do they do now? What skills do they have? What have they amassed? Right? Are they gonna go back to school? Did they finish their school? Where are they in this world? And that's a question that a lot of these players don't necessarily have the way to kind of do it, right?
It makes me think more about the whole head injury paradigm when you have these. Unfortunately, we have these superstars that end up taking their own lives because of the demons that they have. And, concussion injuries are a very real thing. And I'm glad that there's more and more action that's being taken. Makes you wonder, though, like I've seen some of the research behind doing IV therapies that actually help with concussion. Man, I wish we could get that stuff on the front lines. Like, I would love to be able to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
on the sideline.
That's the next piece, right? So the first piece is they have to be able to diagnose a concussion before a guy's stumbling across the field or knocked out, right? So that's the first case, and then the treatment protocols for these concussions or TBIs, right? That's where you get into an IV situation. That's where there's just not enough ownership on the actual concussion. And I think that's one of the biggest, like in the background, kind of pushing notices that are like, well, nobody wants to own CTE, nobody wants to own a concussion, nobody wants to say that contact athletics is a little bit of we need to go at this maybe a different way,
Right. That's one of the reasons why I picked the picture of you for the preview that I did. The black. So what did you do? Did you do joint injections? Did you do IV? Did you do both?
No, so I had a grade 3 AC joint separation in 2006. And I probably did it 10 more times, maybe more on both sides. You know, it's one of those injuries, you know, for people understand, when you hit somebody, you push down, your collarbone goes up, and there's a bunch of stuff in here that try to keep it down. And when that all tears, now my collarbone sticks up like an extra inch here. So in all of that, I can't really, you know, hold the weight of my arm. You know, I have a lot of trigger point issues, and back here, the back of my neck is really all atrophied. So now that I've had that treated, you know, sleeping through the night is an issue, like rolling over. You know, I hold my hands in my pockets because the weight of my arms, like I said, is too much, right? So that was my first treatment protocol, I guess, in this. You know, I obviously researched it till I was blue in the face because I'm not a big fan of needles in general. I've had hundreds of stitches, but still I don't like needles.
Right.
So before I was going to do this, I had to, you know, look into it with a really fine tooth comb. But to say that I'm better now would be the biggest understatement I could ever say in my life. You know, understanding what I've been through, it really is black and white, night and day.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome, man. I'm super happy that you found regenerative medicine and it's made that big of an impact for you that you've actually decided to make a career out of it. I think that's fabulous. It's cool on the clinician side of things too, to hear people that come back and, you know, you don't have to be a professional athlete to get injuries and things that change your life. I have, you know, I have a patient that's about our age that she actually plays roller derby. Is it play? I don't even know if that's the right.
I think so. I mean, shoot, you gotta respect it.
Right? And she had a pretty substantial knee injury several years ago. And even at, you know, I'm 41, you're younger than I'm 42, you're younger than I am. I think she's in her late 30s. But even in her late 30s is told, hey, your only option is to have this knee replaced. Well, when you got someone who's self-employed, taking 6 to 8 weeks off to get a joint replacement is not an option.
Yeah, so here's what I'm excited about for this industry. Obviously, athletics and such, but the relatable, you know, consumer base that's gonna need this. Right. You know, that's right. But what I'm excited about is somebody in their 20s and 30s and 40s to have a treatment option, right, that is less invasive than, you know, something that they're going to eventually have to have in their 50s, 60s, 70s. That could be catastrophic. It's going to be life-changing at that point, right? And those years are life-changing up at that point too, dealing with the pain and whatnot, right?
Sure. And using myself as an example, I went on a pretty substantial hike last summer, and my knees, they've finally recovered now, but I know that I'm going to have issues with them later down the road if I don't do something. Right. And I have an option that's a very viable option that I can do now, so that something or someday never comes.
Yeah, right. It's like there's a ticking time bomb sometimes when you slip on a piece of ice or something, you're like, whoa, hey, you know.
Unlike you, I try to avoid the ice as much as possible.
I'm on wheels now. I'm in Florida. I got my rollerblades.
That's awesome. You know, did I ever tell you about the first patient that we ever injected?
No, you did not.
It was my dad.
Okay. Well, so that's, yeah.
He's the main reason why I got into this, is just looking for something to help him, because he was actually scheduled to have both of his knees replaced. Okay. And at the time we did it, we were using umbilical cord stem cells. And that was 3.5 years ago, and he's still fine. Like, no surgery, just great. So it's just cool to see it both on my end too.
I think what regenerative medicine really gives us the ability to do is rehab our joints and our pieces better, you know, right? So there's surgery, then there's rehab. But what if there was, you know, rehab after a treatment where it was more of a reactivation? You know, it was it was a strengthening. You know, you add cushioning, you add lubrication. You speak in these terms that are deliverable to, you know, people. But also you're activating them now in a way that they're becoming more healthy, you know. So the regeneration isn't just in their joint; it's in their lifestyle, right?
Right. And I'll throw a plug in here. Most of the joints that we inject, I always almost always recommend that they do an IV at the same time that they do a joint injection, just to help with any of that general just overall wellness, which is actually kind of cool.
Interesting. Well, and that's where we are, right? We're looking for you to develop the protocols that the population wants.
Right.
You know, right?
What I tell people is what we're actually doing is we're augmenting the body's ability to heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
When a fetus is in the womb, it has a 100% ability to completely regenerate from injury. And from birth to the teenage years, it drops off drastically, and then it just slowly slopes off as time goes on. By the time you hit your 50s or 60s, your own innate ability to heal itself is down to like 25% of what it would be.
Right.
This is not the fountain of youth, but it sure is a boost when it comes to getting over these chronic injuries.
Well, there's typically that age out, right? In athletics, it's like 30, 35, 40, where it's now you've plateaued, right? You're more maintenance mode, you know. You're not gonna get any stronger, faster, quicker kind of thing. Obviously, so the Tom Brady's of the world will
Tom Brady's the exception.
will continually ruin that whole thing. But those are the extraordinary people, right?
Right.
But so that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, good times. Well, hey man, I got family stuff calling for me, so this has been awesome, Marv. I'm glad you reached out to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been a lot of fun. What I'll do is I'll get over to my YouTube page. I'll send you a link to this so you can have a link to it. And so, well, it's been great, buddy.
Nice talking to you, Doc. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, I'll let you know next time I'm in Florida. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Round of golf on me.
You don't want to see that. Okay, buddy. Thanks.
All right. Bye.